All right, it is 6 p.m. I'll call to order the Keystone Heights Airport Authority December meeting. It is December the 5th, 2023, 6 p.m. And I'll ask everyone to please stand for prayer and then pledge of allegiance. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we pause to give you thanks and give you praise for who you are. We praise you, Lord, for your love and your grace and your mercy that you've extended to each one of us. Thank you for this time that we do the business of the airport, this freedom that we exercise. Lord, we thank you for your blessings on our tenants and businesses, and we ask that you continue to use this board to exercise wisdom, sound judgment, decision-making as it affects our future. And Lord, we pray for so many things that are going on in our world, the Middle East, and other issues even in our own nation. And we just pray that you would bring a peace that only you can provide. Father, we ask that you keep our first responders, our military men and women. Lord, comfort these who have been recently lost in some accidents. We just pray comfort for them and their families. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Greg, you'll do roll call?
Yeah, looks like I'm missing our list of board members here, but Mr. Kirkland.
Present.
Mr. Fryer.
Here.
Mr. Van Zandt.
Here.
Mr. Dagenet.
Here.
Here.
Okay. All right. I apologize.
We'll let the record show that obviously Airport Manager Craig Kuhn is here. Our Florida National Guard representative is not with us tonight, and as Craig had mentioned earlier, Mayor Nina Rodenroth said that she could not be here tonight, so we'll also let the record show that Miss Tina is with us, and we want to say special thanks to Miss Tina for doing our minutes and video as well. She's been doing a great job, and we appreciate her so much. I have not received any public comment cards. Nobody else from the public is here, so I think we can move forward. Let's look at the next item, our consent agenda. What you were provided in the digital packet that Craig had sent out to us is the approval of the October financials, approval of the November 7th Keystone Heights Airport Authority Board meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion, we accept the consent agenda as presented.
All right, we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Seamer. The motion was by Mr. Fryer, Ms. Tina. So all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Reports. Bill Prang is not here, and Craig had provided an update earlier on the 1129 lighting project. So you want to hit some of those high spots again so that Mr.
Yeah.
can have that for the minutes?
Yep. So we are working on the reels on 523 today and Friday. REIL, the runway and identifier lights. And we do have all of our equipment in hand for installation. And I think we're on track for potential December 15th.
Completion.
Well, that's you're done with all the work. We still have punch list, but substantial completion, yes.
Okay. Ms. Tina, let the record also know, reflect that Colonel Allen from National Guard is here. So thank you, Colonel. Good to see you.
Gladly, thank you, sir.
All right, moving on. Ms. Whitney with FTOT is not with us this evening. Move to my item, pre-audit.
You always forget.
So if you haven't silenced your phone, that would be a good time. Pre-audit. Each year, all of us know that we have used Reddish and White to do our auditing. they have done all of that auditing, which includes a standard audit. This year, we will have a single audit because of our taxi lane project and our lighting project exceeds a certain value. So it requires that the auditors do what is called a single audit, in addition to our regular audit. Some of the other services that Reddish & White has provided is doing some non-attest items, converting from a cash to accrual basis and some other forms and documents that have to be prepared. They had asked that we try to find someone else to do that, because if they do all of that in-house, then they have to get another auditing firm as a peer review to oversee and really look at what they've done and sign off on that. That happened this year with this year's audit. Brad Millian with Reddish & White, who heads up the audit for us each year, gave us some information to where we could go out with a request for quote and find out if there was another CPA firm that we could at least hire to do the non-attest portion. We sent that out October.
Oh, yeah, it's been a while.
We have yet to receive any response. Is that
6
correct?
weeks at least, yes, correct.
We sent it to 3 different firms, local firms. So our option now is Reddish & White will continue to do that. They'll do the non-attest work. However, as they had provided for us previously, the standard audit with a single audit component is $18,500. The additional non-attest services that's in connection with the audit, all of those services, there's a breakdown. There's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 items here, and they total up to $13,000. One of the things that we've attempted to do is have Rebecca Williams, our CPA, do some of this work, but it's not been to the level that Reddish & White needs it to be done. So I think our only option now is that we go back to Reddish & White and tell them that we've not had any response to our RFQ, so we're going to have to hire them to do all of it.
Does our auditor fall in the requirements along the same lines as what would do a school board or county commission?
I don't know.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, if you've got a plan and you want me to support it, I'll support it. If you want me to make a couple of phone calls, I don't know the exact language. I used to couldn't get rid of auditors. I had them all over me. But I've never heard of a situation
there, okay?
and every one of them was clean and compliant. But I'm having there's CPAs rattling all over the place, and there's audit firms. We used to use Alden White, A-U-L-D. And when you were talking about Register and White last month, I was getting them mixed up in my brain. But
Well, if you have someone,
I don't have a guy, so to speak, but I know people that have several of them and could just ask if the Reddish & White people really don't want to do it the way you're fixing to propose it. You put out an RFP, so you didn't want to do it the way you're proposing.
Well, the reason they didn't want to do it was because of the non-attest side.
Right.
It's really like Lori doing all of our financials. When there has to be that separation of duties, that's why they have to bring in a separate audit firm to oversee and review what they did. I'm open to that, but we're getting down to the wire here because typically we start in December. I'm open to trying to find somebody. I'll tell you, we contacted the auditing firm for Bradford County, Clay County, and then for the city of Stark, they use out of Lake City. So those 3 firms were the ones that we could actually get information to. And we even gave in the RFQ document, we can get a copy of this to everybody. it was an option to do it all, or an option just to do the non-attest portion. And it's like, everybody, well, no response. So I have been told from the others, Bradford County and some others that I talked with, that just the opposite of what you're saying is that everybody's so busy, they don't want any more work. But let's get with Mr. Van Zant, get those names of firms, whatever it may be, and get them a copy of this, and let's see if we can get a response.
Yeah, I can't believe I can't find somebody either in Jacksonville or Orlando. I know that's not local. And then when you do this, you're gonna have to do the bidding process because it exceeds the purchasing. So, but anybody, you've said, if they do it along the lines of the school board, as long as they're, I would imagine, be a licensed CPA, anybody could do it, I would think.
Well, let's pursue that.
License.
I appreciate that
Let me make a
option,
couple of
so,
calls tomorrow and see if I can come up with anything.
okay.
I know of one CPA, and he works for a firm in Gainesville, Jim Petray.
I'd still consider that local. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I'm just saying, Jim Petray is, and I could get his number and everything.
Sure.
Well, do this. If both of you will send your contact information for those individuals to Craig, so that he can, in turn, get this document, request for proposal, to them. And I'm sure they can look at it within a few weeks. I mean, pick a deadline here. I mean, the holidays are going to eat up, Christmas is going to eat up a week.
What is our deadline to have it completed?
It's later next year,
Okay.
but the auditors like to go ahead and get on it, because what happens, if you get closer to April, now you're getting into the tax season time, and that's when they really are busy. So I think that's why they shoot for getting it done that first quarter
Gotcha.
at least.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, great. Good to have some options, because
Well, I'm not sure I have them. I have people that,
get some of those auditors that were crawling all over you. That's what we need. All right, so that's the only item I had. Any other questions about that before we move on? All right. Mr. Fryer, airfill updates.
Okay, so we're just using the opportunity that now the grass isn't growing to get caught up on some things in the maintenance shop. The electrical vault, I will agree, Craig says, man, that thing's a mess. So we went down and looked. The contractor's got stuff in there. We had stuff in there. It's a spider farm in there, cobwebs. So Justin and I went down and cleaned all that out. We moved some of it was just spare part lighting that we took back down to the maintenance shop. We're gonna try to organize it there.
The light bulb looks really good, though.
Yeah.
They did a really good job.
Yeah, we vacuumed and everything. It looks a lot better in there. There's room to leave that auxiliary regulator there, or the surplus regulator, so. And that contractor's doing a great job. We've been going riding around and looking at their work. They are jam up. The other thing, we're moving some of the dirt that, for y'all that weren't here then, when they were building the Clay Electric, you call it a campus. The new thing up there, Wayne Wynn was able to get us a bunch of fill dirt. And so if you ever come in the firm gate and see that mound of dog fennels growing, there's actually fill dirt under there. We're actually moving that right now, filling in some gully washes and whatnot, using the opportunity for that. Craig didn't get to meet him, but I got a gentleman by the name of Scott Woods from Motion Industries to come in here today. So on our avgas farm, the fuel pump down there, it's always made a lot of noise, but Mike, if you recall, had Abacon rebuild it, I think just last year. And last year being 2022. And now it's getting noisy again, so they've been putting the grease to it. So I knew that we had or regulated greasers at the power plant. You run them into where the Zerk fitting would normally go, and it automatically feeds a little grease pot into it, much like a buddy bearing on a boat trailer, if you're familiar with those. A little more sophisticated than that. So he's gonna look into that, but oddly enough, I did not know this. Motion Industries has just bought a company out in the Orlando area. And they also do pump work. They had always been in the powertrain business for gearboxes, gear reducers, bearings, seals, all that stuff. So anyway, he took some pictures of those, but I told him, and I don't think this has made it to the board yet. If it has, I apologize. I think we did discuss it. Didn't we talk about the possibility of, instead of the jet farm, the fuel farm, we're gonna get, maybe making it an avgas farm? Did we talk about that in the last board meeting, or has that
No.
just been with the engineer?
Sounds like just.
Yeah, that was just, yeah, we haven't discussed
Okay,
that.
so, well, anyway, there's logistics problems with that. But the pump we know that we have on the avgas farm is an obsolete thing, and the parts are getting hard to get a hold of, so we're looking to get it where our preventative maintenance is automatic. You know, it greases as it operates automatically, and then we just check it rather than have to rely on somebody remembering to go manually grease it. So anyway, he was here today. He's gonna get back with us. When we get more information, we'll get Craig on base for that. He was working with, I think y'all had a tour out here today, didn't you? Some kids come out. And what else? Well, in general, we're just catching up on things as we can. Oh, I know what it was.
You did get the tug fixed.
Yeah, we got that tug fixed. We got another tug down there we were working on. The pump house back here, or I'll call it the water softener, because we had to abandon that well there. It started drawing sand. So apparently carports anywhere is the manufacturer. Handy House at Stark is the dealer. Apparently they came out to do the install that we ordered in June, and I think they were here sometime maybe in September. And they had oversized it. Something went wrong. It was way too big. So they took dimensions again, and it's just been kind of laying there in lull. And so Mike's gone, Sherbach's gone, and I said, well, what's going on with that? And Craig didn't know anything, and Justin hadn't really heard anything. So when I left here one day, I rode over there to Dina and talked to her at Handy House, and then I went to Carports. They're waiting on us to repair the masonry part that came out when we were removing the old structure. So
Stem wall.
The stem wall, right. So I went this morning to Ace and got 3 cinder blocks and some mortar mix and some concrete, and we've got a plan on how to do that. We're gonna try to get it done this week, but if not, we'll get that done next week. And then Cindy over there told me at Carports Anywhere, she says, just call her when we're ready, and they'll come install it. We just got to get it prepped for them. And I think that's all I've got.
I looked at the Snoopy house, house cover. There's a hole in that roof. Is that?
Yeah, lightning struck him.
Oh, that's
So I
right.
got my sister to
about
make a
that.
new Snoopy. I've got to put him back on, but I got to put a shingle there.
Okay.
Snoopy didn't do too good.
I forgot about the light. I did forget about
Yeah,
that.
we had that pump house, and years ago, before I was even on the board, I went out there, I asked Maria, can I do some of this? So Terry Harmon helped me, and we painted it to look like Snoopy's flying dog house, and got my sister to do the thing. And then I come out one weekend, and Snoopy was splintered, and his scarf was blown off, and it was a lightning strike, but it's got a shingle there I need to,
Okay.
I had to get in there and replace. So,
I just noticed it when I rode by today. I
Yeah, that's another
remember
one I
that
need to get
hole
on.
being in the roof. I didn't know if a limb had fallen maybe. And
yeah, it was a lightning strike, so.
okay, very good. Moving on down to Mr. Seamer.
Yes, I met with Mr. Carlton Scott. He is the senior forester for Clay County and Duval County. And he and I rode the property. And I'd say that we rode probably 90% of the fence. We talked about what our possible future plans were going to be in the future with MHD Rockland and the road up front. And we went into the hunt club and rode that, and all the way down to Crystal Lake and back up and around. And he is going to write a master management plan for us. As we are a tree farm, we're supposed to be managed and they're supposed to have a plan. And one thing that he said was that, one, it's not going to cost us anything. Two, he's, as I stated last month, from Mr. Corby, every third row of trees needs to come out in the back end back over here. Just because the fire load is so high. And those sand pines and slash pines, he said, they, with it as thick as it is, if a fire started, we'd lose everything. They would not survive the fire. So he suggests every third row taken out, and then we would get on a every 3 to 5 year burn, where they would come out and the Florida Forestry Service would burn it for free, and they would have all their equipment and do everything. So that was good to find out. And he suggested if we clear cut the front by 100, that we go across the road and get those trees also, just because it would, while you're getting them and the equipment's here, it'd be better. And he said that there's a very good possibility that we could get a grant from the Florida Forestry Service. And he mentioned another thing about funding, and that would cover the prep of the land and the planting of the trees and the long leaf pine, which he says would be the best way to go. And after 20 years, you can thin those, and if you wanted to leave them for 100, they could get up to 120 foot tall. And very big around. He said it would be a mill instead of going to pulp like what we have now. As far as the hunt club, he said that really doesn't need anything for the next 3 to 5 years done with it, but it would need to be cut and burned also. It would need to be thinned in 3 to 5 years and burned also. But he's supposed to get me the plan to me by the end of this year. And as soon as I get it, I'll get it to Craig and he can disseminate it to everybody so that you can look at it. And then we can discuss what we really want to do, the directions we want to go in. But he said there's areas the fence has to be mowed, and there's some areas because of where the hunt club is that ITT Rainier owns. ITT Rainier doesn't burn, they don't clear until they go to harvest. And he said in those areas we're going to need, because they're growing through the fence. And
Get a good fire break in there.
yeah, he said we need to have that, disked. And he said, I don't recommend disking everything. He said, but there are some areas that I do recommend it. But the rest of it needs to be mowed, just so that you can have a little bit of a break in there.
When did the fire happen that did get our timber? I mean, it was before I was on the board. Were you on the board?
No, it was 97.
98 was the big fires.
I agree.
I know it was somewhere to 98.
That fuel out there on the ground, I mean, it's just waiting,
Yeah, oh yeah.
waiting to
And
go off.
he was like kind of astonished that it was as high as it was.
Has it ever been done? Do you know if we've ever done a fuel burn or the bottom we've just done the center of the field before. But
Yeah, that's all I'm aware of.
how soon do they do that? Do they do that like in the spring, or do they do it when it's still
Well,
dry?
as far as that goes, I would have to ask him, but we would have to harvest every third row
You
first.
gotta do the thinning first before you do the
I got
burn.
you.
Yeah, because if we set it on fire,
It'll just take off.
it'd take everything out, we wouldn't get anything.
Okay,
He suggests that we do every third row and then decide at that point, they would decide at that point whether or not it needed to be burned immediately or if it could wait.
okay.
Also about the infield, I talked to him about it, and he's recommending the end of January of burning it. Before it's burned, it has to be mowed real low, almost to a scalp. That's just to keep the fire load down. Once it's burned and you start seeing the green come back up, which should be the indigenous grass in Florida, which is Florida carpet grass, that we would put out 25-10 fertilizer. And that would increase
Grass growth.
grass
rather than
growth
that.
and cut back on the weed propagation that we have. And then a couple weeks after that, come back with Florida carpet grass seed, which I think this year was $20 a pound.
Would they pay for that, or would we have?
No, that would have to come, the fertilizer and the
Get that
seed.
through the grant, through possibly a grant.
If we could do it, that would sure be good.
But it would, I don't know if you've ever dealt with Florida carpet grass, but it sends out runners and it sends up a little seed pod.
Okay,
And the seed pods, how the Pensacola Bahia seed pods would be that long, these seed pods aren't but about this long. And the nice thing about it is that it'll reseed and you just let it come up until you see a nice little golden haze. That's when you mow it
it takes care of itself.
and it regenerates and goes.
Stay fairly low.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
And it's not something that you can let go for 2 or 3 months because it will choke the Kubota down,
okay.
because it will get very thick. It used to be what they used for farm grass for the
We
cows.
ought to come up with a plan before we do that, because we were just talking about the amount of fuel we're burning. And if that becomes, that majority out there becomes a new mowing thing, then we're gonna burn even more. But there is some wild, I think it's wild centipede. It may be some of that stuff out there.
If it looks wild,
It looks like wild centipede grass.
that is Florida carpet grass.
There's some of that already existing out there, and
Yeah.
it's very low.
Yep, it doesn't, it won't get probably higher than this,
You know,
but if you let it get up this high, it'll be so thick,
Yeah.
you'll have to bale it.
Craig, you want to mention what you found out from the FAA as far as heights, of grass from a runway and taxiways and?
Yeah, I mean, there really isn't much of a requirement in terms of specific numbers other than your runway safety area, the RSA. I think it's 100, I need to double check, but I think it's 150 feet total in width, 75 from the center line. That you need to keep down, but outside of that, I think they're more concerned about wildlife attractant. So it's somewhere between the not quite ready to mow and this is way too long, whatever that distance is, I don't know, but.
So on the disking though of the fence lines, did you give an idea on how frequently that should be done?
He didn't, but it may be in the plan, and I'll just have to wait and see.
I think Camp Landing does theirs annually. I don't,
Usually that's about what it is. They usually don't have to do it more than that. And we have the disc and we got the small tractor, and, it's not like you have to do the whole thing. Because of Blanding's doing
Their side.
It looks like a 20-foot wide swath that they've done.
Would we need to do our side if they've done their 20?
No, sir. No.
So that's one of the areas we wouldn't have to do.
Yes, sir. That is correct. Because they've done theirs, that's a big enough break. The only really part that he was talking about is the ITT Rayonier part. Because there is nothing there and the stuff is growing literally through the fence.
Is that something that he could ride out there and just show Justin where to disc and we
Yeah.
just get it done?
Yeah, and like I said, it's got to be mowed, and before you can mow it, that fence line's going to have to be cleared first.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because the
I
limb,
was trying to get Asplund. I've been trying to get a hold of different companies to see how much they charge us, because we got no equipment that will mow that.
yeah,
We wanted to buy, there's another implement, since you brought this up, it's called a lane shark. And it mounts on the front of like the Kubota.
Right.
It's a hydraulic motor and it's just a mini bush hog. But the neat thing about it, you can bring it up vertically into a vertical plane and run it along a
Right.
fence line and as high as your bucket will go.
right,
You can also mow dishes with it because it swings and offsets. But we were looking at about $7 or $8 grand to get that. So
Right.
I was trying to find to see if there was a company that would come in and mow it at least this one time, or, I mean, not mow it, trim it,
Yeah.
get it back. But it is thick. You
And-
can't drive through anything through there right
and of course, along Airport Road by the,
now. And we could
from the
use that
firm
here,
down,
right?
basically. Those trees will have to be brought down by a tree trimmer. I wouldn't see one of us doing it and then collapsing it on the fence.
Well, if I can, it's not really on the agenda, but so Tina was telling me about, with the city, you know, they use inmate, low-risk inmates that are in minimum security. I think prisons like Lottie up there, we have to provide the transportation, but we've got to get somebody trained. And so I asked her, I said, well, are they allowed to use power equipment? I didn't think they'd be able to touch a chainsaw or a weed eater. I said, absolutely, as long as they're trained.
Right,
So the whole point of us renting or leasing that excavator when we originally did it, Justin was gonna go down the fence line and dig it, but it is so thick in there with large trees,
right,
he can't even swing the excavator.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it might be that we want to look into that, and that would be a good wintertime project. Go in there and try to just fell the trees towards the ravine side. In other words, away from the fence.
Right,
And try to get it cleared, and then at that point, maybe we look at coming back with an excavator to dig the stumps out. And maybe we could reach across from Airport Road into there to get the stumps, and once we get it though, we've got to keep it maintained, because this is what happens when these trees take over. So
right.
maybe talk to, because you and I can't really talk outside
Right.
here about it. Talk to Craig about it some, and then Tina can, I'm sure she'd be helpful.
And
for us to get in touch or-
I was a correctional officer at one time. and
Okay.
I was CPI.
There you go.
certified.
There you go. Get out there with your whip and just get them in their striped uniforms.
I've done
And
that.
chainsaws.
With chainsaws, yeah, and then don't get mouthy with them.
I did that, yeah.
But we could do that. I think we could use their, talents in there and just drop the trees. And then once they're dropped, once we can get a path in there, we got the grapple, we can go back in later and drag them out somewhere.
We looked at doing that with our mowing a few years ago, and it just wasn't feasible.
Yeah, you can't get even the skag in there. I mean, it's just too narrow.
Well, no, I'm talking about our regular mowing, like with the SCAG, just regular maintenance mowing.
Right.
It wasn't feasible. Time we paid somebody,
Oh, you're
got the
talking about to get them
transportation.
out here
Yeah,
for that?
and bought all the equipment that's required. It wasn't feasible.
Yeah, and.
Well, this would be just a one-time project, though, I'm thinking. I'm not talking about on a routine basis,
Yeah,
because there's a
well, we'll
bunch
just
of
have to look
trees.
into it.
Yeah,
look at the
that
amount
would
of
be
trees.
something, again, it may be in the plan. I don't know what all is going to be in it. But he said that we have, even with the prices down, that we have a lot
Monumental.
of money sitting out there.
Oh,
that,
they do.
Huh?
They do.
We do.
No, we
you're talking about the harvesting.
because of the harvesting of the trees, we have a lot of money sitting there that could be done in a very simple way, and especially a 100 area. And not knowing the exact details of the 1129 project, of all that. But those trees, he said, would be very harvestable. So,
Well, one of the options with that is the proceeds that we get from the thinning, as well as any clear cutting that has to be done over in the west side development area. We could take some of those proceeds to actually hire to get that fence line, maybe down Airport Road that we can't because of all the trees.
and that's what I was
Use a
thinking.
portion of those funds to get that done. And so, well, we'll look forward to the plan. It's great to hear that we have those resources that you've been able to use, Rex, and that they're developing that plan for us and getting the Forestry Service involved again. That's good.
If you don't know, you go to people that do.
Exactly.
And I don't know. So
Exactly.
I'm tapping as hard as I can.
Making the right contacts, though.
Yep.
And that's all.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Excited news, good news about that. Craig,
So we've got the storm deductible. I want to come back to that real quick, but before we do that, I wanted to announce, maybe a bit of a surprise to you, that Mr. Rob Cornelius has accepted Mike Sherbach's position. So he's going to either start later this week or Monday.
Don't remember who Rob was?
No.
Oh, you don't?
We interviewed him. He was.
Yeah.
Well, once we tell you who he is, you'll be real surprised.
Yeah. Now I do.
Yeah,
that Rob.
Okay.
Yeah, so he is going out on a holiday trip, but we're going to get him a few days started here this week and next. And then it'll be more official, probably like the 2nd. I did also want to ask, the next board meeting, while I'm on the subject, is January 2nd,
Thank you.
which is Tuesday. Do we want to move that at all, just because of the proximity to the 1st? I don't mind. I can do whatever. I'm just asking.
Week after.
So it would be the 9th of January. I'm sure the city is not meeting on the 1st, so
Right.
Right?
I'm sure theirs is probably the 8th,
Okay.
that they postponed theirs to the 8th. So
Yeah, whatever you all would like to do, I'd be happy to accommodate
it's
that.
pleasure of the board.
9th works for me.
Let's do it on, everybody good on the
I'm
9th?
good on that, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So he'll be starting officially the week of the 2nd, but we're gonna get him some boots on the ground time here before he goes. Actually, I'm pretty excited to have him just because he was someone that was well thought of by the board during the first interview. And so I think it'll work out great. Does anyone have any questions about that? No? So I wanted to get back to the deductible. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
And I don't know if this can be handled administratively, but so Craig had mentioned this to me, and I still go back to the thing. We've got an airport manager and we've got an airfield manager. That manager title was a previous employee, kept insisting upon being called a manager, and I think we need to nip that in the bud right now while we're making this change.
I think it's airfield supervisor, isn't it?
That's how I had presented this position.
Right.
But I think Mr. Cornelius is probably a little bit more experienced than what I had set out to find, which is great. But I think Mr. Fryer was just concerned about confusion as to who's, not us, but someone else that you're introducing people to who's kind of in charge.
An airport manager may be called an airfield manager somewhere else, and when you say, well, you've got an airfield manager and an airport manager, I just think it's better to say the airfield supervisor, get back to the way it used to be, or called it airfield and facilities supervisor.
I'm fine with whatever.
Well, I think all of his documentation,
For what I had,
Well, I think that makes sense, Scott. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, it's just too confusing.
and I think that's what's on his door tag, so.
no, it says manager.
Does it?
Yeah, we'll have to,
Off of there.
yeah.
I'll make a motion that we change,
It's on agenda item,
oh,
and technically,
It can be handled administratively, but I just
Yeah.
think, I'm just thinking, wondering what the consensus of the board is. I think it's too confusing. I remember when that was all going around, and I think that the then airport manager just relented and said, if that's what he wants to be called, but I don't think we should do that.
I think it's an administrative function. Let's just let the airport manager handle that and
Okay.
change whatever. All right, sounds good.
So to get back to the deductible for the storm that we tabled last month, I did go talk to Lori today. In plans of printing out what we spent for building maintenance, looking for some, there's no big number there because we really haven't had it, so I didn't really have her bother. But with that said, I'm not pushing you to accept a higher deductible, and then next summer, I'm looking for a new job when we have a hurricane over here. So, you know, if any of you have opinion, but here's what I would like to do is come to a decision today. Our next quarterly payment is due January 1st. And once we pay that, we'll be halfway through the year anyways. So if you would like to keep the current policy intact, I think we said $20,000 is our extra expenditure to do that.
What's the current deductible and what's the proposed deductible and what's the savings?
Let me pull it up because I do have,
Had that,
I have it for last month, yeah. Give me
that was in our packet for last month where he broke it down for what our current rate is, and then if we selected the options, what those costs would be for a higher deductible and the reduced premium that we would realize from that. As he said, we've been fortunate, we've had some hurricanes now come through. We have had some minor trim type pieces of metal that come off and of some of
This
the
part of
hangers.
Florida is pretty, don't know why, it's kind of like, we don't get hit directly very often.
Okay.
Like I say, as soon as we do that, then we'll come.
You betcha, that's exactly what's gonna happen.
So what were the numbers again?
So the options, what we're currently at is 5% deductible. The lower options are 7.5% and then 10. The current premium that we're paying for the entire policy for the storm, and this is just for the storm policy, is $88,373. It's essentially $10,000 a step. The option number 2, which puts us at 10%, is $70,339 versus 88. So it's 18 some odd dollars, 18,000.
Now, when you say 10% or 5%, is that of the total rebuild cost?
Whatever the loss is, yeah. And I had put a section there that said at a $3 million loss, which to me is 2 buildings, probably.
Yeah.
In a total loss, you're going from $150,000 in risk to $300,000 because you're at 10% at that point.
And what are we saving, 18,000?
Yeah. So you need 10 years of non-damage to put away.
And that's pretty good savings, and you could, well, and we could bank part of that 18,000. You could start banking part of it as a, not a slush fund, what would you call it?
Contingency.
Contingency fund. Yeah,
The auditor after you.
yeah, the auditor will get us for that. That's quite a savings, 18,000. And that's per year.
Well, we're not going to quite get that much now because that was,
For the start of the.
Right, but the eventuality, it'd be prorated for this year, you're saying, but.
right. But I am definitely not pushing it. I've talked to a couple board members that feel like we should opt for the lowest deductible that we can afford. I think that with Rockland here, this is based on last year's numbers, I think that we can afford it, but it's gonna cut into other things that we need to do or may pop up between now and then.
Well, let me add this too, and I don't know if I've said this because we do have a lot of new board members, but a little over a year ago, I had the roof priced on the far hangar, and complete replacement of that at that time. And that's not with mangled metal, that's the way it exists now, removing it and replace it was over 200,000 just for that one roof, bulk hangar.
So, yeah, that's,
If that got it and some others, yeah, we could be in for a whopper if we did go with too high of a deductible.
well, you pay, so if you said that was 200,000 just for the roof, it would be 10% or 20,000.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, it's all risk assessment. I guess I'm not a professional in that, so
Where are we at today? At what percentage?
5.
We're at 5?
Next level is 7.5 and then 10.
They're essentially doubling it or having it, I suppose you could call it, in reverse.
So how much would the 7.5% be?
So I said 88 and then it's 78,605 for 7.5%.
Yeah, it's about that 10 grand
Exactly.
difference that you keep seeing. We have budgeted in our budget we approved for our coming year. We're right at that. I mean,
We
maxed
budgeted
out.
90,000.
Yeah.
With this new policy, it's at like 118. So you guys had it dialed in for what our premium was.
Correct.
It is not dialed in for this. So,
Which is part of an amendment that we were discussing.
right.
About having to bring back to the board, once we finalize a decision on what we wanted to do with insurance, that we need to do an amendment to our budget to reflect that. And then any other additional things that may have come up that we would need to address. So that's why Craig's bringing it to us. We just got to make a decision.
Well, I suppose no action is a decision, but
So 5% is the minimum.
Correct.
That's the lowest you can get it.
correct.
We're at
That's where we
5%
are
right now.
So if we went to 7.5, is the third, the next tier,
It's about 10 grand.
10 grand each step essentially.
that might be
That's a-
manageable risk.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna have to have bake sales and car washes to raise it anyway. Have to wash more cars and make more money. Is that something we can vote on tonight, or?
It's on the agenda, yes.
Yes, we need to make a decision so that Craig can move forward.
I'll make the motion that we go to 7.5% from 5.
Now, second.
All right. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you for taking care of that.
So let's figure out what we're gonna do with that slush. No.
The last item on the agenda is we do need to make a motion for the resolution for the DOT project money. Again, just to refresh, it's 400,000 total. Donna found $200,000. Initially, the project was only labeled at 200,000. Donna was able to find us an extra 200 that she could do now. And then the next 200 will come the next fiscal year, which will be July 1st, essentially. So I had this resolution verbiage as purchase and installation of 3 backup generators for the FBO building, fuel farm, and airfield vault,
Airfield lighting,
essentially.
okay. You might wanna just change that to,
Actually, the verbiage we took right off the JSIP.
That's right. I just-
And then Donna had put together.
That's right. That is what I did.
That's why we wanted the resolution to reflect the exact verbiage from.
I did forget I copied that, yeah.
now, or is the resolution for the entire 400,000?
No, I talked to Bill about that, and there's like some kind of a amendment that we make later, but
Yeah.
I did talk to him, this is what we do, and then we'll come back in July and, approve the rest.
We just have to have a resolution number.
So what this is for, this resolution then would be for the initial
Correct.
portion of the
200,000.
grant.
Yes, sir.
Don't we have to have a really,
Is, yeah, I think it's already on there, 2023-4.
okay.
Correct.
That's correct.
So this would just be a motion to approve 2023-4, is that correct? Yeah.
I'll make that motion to approve it as written.
Second.
All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Very good. Excellent. Let's see, where are we?
Camp Landing.
Camp Landing.
Vern?
Colonel Allen.
Fire, 16 to 29 December, we're gonna work the fire breaks pretty hard. You don't have an overlay of that yet, but last time we did it, we kind of smoked the cantonment area pretty good. But he expected to be burning for at least solid 10 days. So I'll shoot somebody an email if you want, he's from Mike down here, so that somebody has visibility. Not sure about winds and those things. Also, the Civil Air Patrol will be doing their winter encampment 26 December to 2 January. I did not know whether they were gonna have a demonstration out here again.
I haven't heard from anybody, but yeah,
I was gonna ask Craig if you had heard anything.
I had not.
Do they bring some of their resources and assets in to,
So not just the static display, but last time I thought it was got kind of dicey because they actually had some kids fly and did their graduation piece. Maybe not just last.
I've seen that other places, so that's not unusual.
graduation.
Yeah.
This was unusual, though.
Oh, was it?
They brought in 10 cadets,
Right?
and their objective was to get them to solo in a
Yes, sir.
Short period.
14-day period they were here.
It was, and so no, it's less than that, but what it usually requires is, oh, we're gonna come down and use the field on the 3rd. That turns into the 31st type thing, because the advanced party wants to get down there and walk the terrain. And we certainly don't mean for that to be disruptive.
Sure.
I think what happens is they check in and go, I'm from Blandon, we're gonna use the gate, we'll just come and go. So we're pretty restrictive on that. I know they're probably better stewards than we of coming through there, but I don't have that fidelity yet. So we've asked that question, we just haven't got an answer.
Okay.
I don't think there is a certifying, whatever that proper terminology is for the licensing of the individual flying. But I didn't know if you had visibility of static displays or
Nothing.
things as simple as that, we usually keep on post.
The group they had, was it last year they did it, or?
I think it might have been at least the winter, a solid year ago, if
Yeah.
not a year and a half, like last summer of 22. I should
No,
say.
because
maybe
Maria
it
was
was summer
still
22.
here.
It was summer
Okay.
of 22.
So what they did, and I thought it was odd too, they were staying in your barracks up there or your,
Yes, sir.
and so I questioned them why they weren't driving through the gate. So they did drive through the gate a few times, but they were driving all the way around.
Well, what happened was, they weren't really training with Blanding.
Okay,
Kind of fell up underneath an umbrella.
okay,
There was a different entity altogether. You just kind of dovetailed on the back of Civil Air Patrol. So usually, you can't just use Blanding inexpensively. You're supposed to be coming and training. They weren't having anything to do with this. So we didn't mean to hinder them, but also sometimes we kind of hog time a little bit by, we don't just give the combo or we'll change it on them. Because we'll hear conversations, we certainly don't want to get
okay,
crossed up with Keystone.
right.
Relative, I'm sure this has been mapped out, if not, Corby can speak to you, I don't know if there's a sensitivity on some kind of legality piece. But a lot of times when we do the wood and the clearing and all those things, we don't front $1. We show them a piece of land and go, hey, by the way, those trees you can have. And they'll say, great, that's worth $1. But here's what we're asking for, do this, that. So when you speak of running that line, if you think you're sitting on $1, we don't wait till they harvest, give us $1, and we give it back to them to clear something. We kind of put out a bit of an overlay, cut this track, do these kinds of things. And depending on whatever that yield is on those trees, I mean, we're rarely putting $1 out up front before work gets done. I'm sure that's not escaping you, but whoever we use don't know. I don't know if they can be referred to or whatnot.
For burning or?
Well, for a little bit of both. Usually it's on the harvest. So for instance, when you say you want to cut a line and get up against a fence line and cut that back, that is sometimes, because that guy's already got the equipment, this boss says, hey, we're gonna make money on those trees back there, and cutting that and doing that, not sure about putting a blade in the ground, but at least clearing the,
Well, in the area that I was speaking
Yes,
of,
sir.
that needed to be plowed, there's no trees there. It's
Right.
just growed and then vines and scrub oaks
Roger,
and
back
stuff.
to your point though, instead of getting the yield, sometimes it's just as easy, one big project.
Right.
Because one thing we do find, your car probably test too, man, when they get in there, they are in and out quick. And our game on. That's all I have, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. No one from the city is here. I do know I spoke actually to Dan Lewandowski, the new city council member that took Bobby Brown's place, was here this morning with 5 students from QI Roberts. We showed them a little video, our video of the airport, and talked a little bit about the airport. Todd Falconer from Rockland was here, took them over, took them through the P3, through the shop, through everything. They wanted to see, I mean, the kids even wanted to see the warehouse, so, over there. So, sounded like they had a really good time. In fact, out of the
They want to go
airplane.
back to school.
Yeah, they literally had to say, okay, guys, wrap it up in the cockpit area, because they were all taking turns, you know, sitting there, and so it went really well. I did ask Councilman Lewandowski about the special call meeting the city had last Tuesday. That was for hiring a city clerk position. That was open to the public. They did finalize and selected one lady. I think they fast-tracked her. She's going to be coming on board within 2 weeks, or actually in 2 weeks. She's given her notice. So that's the only thing I know about the city. I know that Ms. Rotowski is still on schedule to leave January 10th. So then, right behind, on the heels of the city clerk, they're going to be hiring a city manager. So their house is real busy right now. So that's all I know about what's going on at the city. And my comment about the kids coming out today, that's my board member comment. So anybody else have anything?
Yes, I'm a dummy. Now I see if I'd scrolled down in my packet further, I would have seen the resolution. I apologize.
That's all right. No, it's fine.
I don't have anything.
All right.
One thing that was brought up was about having a possible fly-in out here. Pilots know what that is. And I guess we could do it through the AOPA, advertise it. I think it would be something that we could do and also make it a drive-in. I know of one car show group that meets pretty regularly. I think it's at Abandoned Treasures on 21.
Yeah.
Misfits or,
His place, Kerry and Jim's place.
yeah.
They used to meet at Hardee's too, I think.
And there are several other car groups around, and they could possibly get them to come out. And I think it would be a good idea. Colonel, is there a way that we could possibly rent or borrow tables and chairs? Landing?
We can get those from the city. That's where we got them before.
Oh, okay.
And Joni got, I don't know how many Clay Electric has, but she got some from there.
Okay.
I will say this, the fly-ins are fun. They're probably the easiest to do. But different airports do them different ways, and you don't have to contact AOPA, we just got to get the word out. Actually, you and I were talking about it, but Williston does a big one every year. They call it When Pigs Fly Barbecue, and it has gotten so huge.
Yep.
That guy will do like 60 briskets and sell them out. There'll be 200 airplanes come in there over a 3-hour period. So the trick is you've got to come up with the money first for the food, or another option is you can bring food trucks in. And that's the easiest way to do it.
Right.
You don't have any air show. You leave the word air show out of it. It's not, it is just a fly-in, but you can invite the car club. I think Bob had done that before. He had antiques, hot rods. We could talk about doing it.
Yeah.
But it's some work. There's work to it. It's not,
And I'll mention to you, it's not in our budget. Doesn't mean that we couldn't amend the budget or maybe look at what we want it to be.
Right.
We need some more details. I think it's a good idea.
There's another option that I've exercised before with the FAA where not using grant, because we didn't have an instructor based, but you can use private pilots like Scott and charge $20, $25 for an airplane ride, and that money can be donated to the airport. The FAA has a system in place to allow that to happen, to where we could get donations, and we would just pay for Scott's fuel essentially. And keep
80th, we had several entities that donated to the event to help us put that on, and I agree. I wish we could do something annually like what Williston is doing, because it is huge.
Well, I think it would just bring, one, people to know that we're here, and two, it might spark an interest in a young person's mind of, I want to do that. And with the amount of flight schools that we have here on site, you know, I just think that it would be good for them also.
it would be. Well, it's a good give back to the community. Palatka does, now they call theirs an open house, and they do it every year. But I've been involved with enough of these, and I love it. But the simpler you keep it, the less work. You still have to have marshalers to move the people, you know, to park them.
Right.
But if you do it just like a flying, those are the easiest ones to do, because you're not inviting warbirds in and trying to figure out, well, this guy says, well, I want 500 gallons of fuel. You don't want any of that. You just say, we're here, we've got food, come have fellowship, you know, hang out with other like-minded pilots. We'll have cars here. And don't even, you know, I don't know how Palatka does it. They may charge the hot rod people or their antique cars something, but I wouldn't even do that. Just have an area designated they could park across the street.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And it's just a community event. And then you work it out with maybe your food vendors, where you just get a portion,
a percentage of it.
3% of your proceeds,
Sure.
or something comes back to the airport to make next year, or buy things like tables and chairs. So when we have it, we got it. I think it's a brilliant idea, but keep it simple.
Yes. KISS.
Yeah.
All right, anybody else?
I just share real quick, I've been working with a young teenager, giving him a little experience on airplane maintenance, and Todd has agreed to also partner and give him some experience on the bigger airplane as well. This fellow's a senior over at Bradford, and so far he seems to really enjoy it.
Oh, what's his name? You remember? Owen McKinney?
Yes, Owen. His name is Owen.
That's my best friend's grandson.
Oh, okay. Cool.
He couldn't pronounce your last name, and I said, I know David.
We know that guy.
But my friend was telling me about it, that he came out and he said he worked with David. And I said, well, we have two.
Yeah.
And he said, well, he couldn't pronounce his last name. I said, Dodgenay. I know who it is. But he was really interested in it.
Oh, good, good.
Anybody else? All right, we'll consider ourselves adjourned at 7:03.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
Colonel Al.
Yes, sir.